So, we finally made it.
We're throwing the ring in Mount Doom here, folks.
Time to put the stake through Dracula's heart.
We lost half the group, a lot of our sanity.
I'm not sure where Biggie is. I think Biggie just kind of broke last episode.
Oh, we found out that mechanics what dat? Yeah, he didn't like the results. I don't blame him. I'm at him, and I I don't know what happened, but I just woke up and well, I'm covered in gore.
I'm Alabaster, and from this, I've decided to become the Unicorn Man. So that's everyone will refer to me now as. So thank you, Chad Walker. You've now made me realize that magical thinking really does work.
And speaking of magical thinking, I've learned that by running naked through the woods at night covered in butter, I'll get Donald Trump out of office.
Let's just get into it, especially since Chad doesn't have any cool pictures. It's literally just him taking a photo of an old test card. Sigmata's dystopian vision of 1986 can barely keep pace with reality's 2018.
So yes, this is just cutting edge. This is going to age so well, isn't it?
I gotta love that Chad's just openly admitting that he thinks that reality is worse than his fantasy.
Yes, the horrible dystopian alternate 80s where there are concentration camps, roving death squads. None of this compares to a bunch of retards with tiki torches in Charlottesville.
Don't forget the soccer hooligans that randomly roam around the streets, as well as the crazy religious cult that burns people at the stake.
Don't forget about communist insurgencies and in corporations, corporations funding private mercenaries.
Nope, got nothing on 2018.
The dog whistles historically used to mobilize white nationalists have been upgraded to foghorns, save for a few insurgents, i.e., the people that the left wing has deemed good because they said Orange Man bad. America's right wing has fully embraced white nationalism as a platform.
Does that? Oh, if we look on the R and the Republican Party's website, are we going to see a white nationalism as a major running point now?
Yeah,
I mean,
like one of their
I'm
main
not.
platforms is now Hitler did nothing wrong.
Isn't that the name of a Mountain Dew product?
Yes, it is. Thanks, Internet.
The party of Lincoln is without question a cult of racial hatred and state-sponsored violence.
I would have loved that the cult of Lincoln. If there wasn't a party of the cult of Lincoln that was just like it was a crazy cult that it was actually about the party of John Wilkes Booth and was called the Party of Lincoln just because it's a group of crazy assassins.
The thing that comes to me, by the way, on this is just it kind of ignores how there are minority Republicans, quite a few of them actually.
Herman Cain is one such example.
Ted Cruz, he's a genuine Mexican, unlike that Irish man that's playing brownface.
Oh no, they're just Uncle Toms.
Such a racist thing to say.
At least right-wing racists are just open about it. Left-wing ones have to pretend that they aren't.
Speaking of that, America's left wing is degenerating in its own ways. Oh yes, Chad, tell us your version of degenerating. So-called leftists have allied with alt-right provocateurs to own the libs. Their worldviews formed by the same digital cesspool of 4chan memes.
Are you 80?
RT propaganda and InfoWar conspiracies.
It's the unholy trinity: PP, Putin, and Alex Jones.
Wait. Doesn't Alex Jones, hasn't he had some conspiracies against Russia and whatnot?
Yeah, has like a
Oh,
million
boy.
conspiracies while trying to sell you like powdered water.
Leftist anti-imperialists provide political cover for Assad's genocidal imperialism, all to the benefit of Putin. A murderous imperialist capitalist ex. Ugh. Why the word salad? Why can't you say a kleptocrat?
Because
A klepto.
a big brain leftist like Chad likes to use thesource.com to feel smarter than he really is. Also, as a leftist, and I'm putting this in so many goddamn quotes, it's not even funny, that voted for Trump, it was the other way around. I was a liberal who did it because I was tired of authoritarian leftists telling me what to think and trying to guilt trip me because I happened to be born a different color.
Tyrants who crush the people while giving lip service to leftist values, like Nicaragua's Daniel Ortega, are also getting a pass. I'm not familiar with that. Does anyone know more about Nicaragua right now?
I think it's kind of like Venezuela Junior, I think.
Well, most of Central America is. I'm surprised he didn't use Maduro instead.
But
Venezuela
no,
too.
Maduro did nothing wrong. It's all the CIA and Drumpf.
Oh yeah, this is back before the not real communism excuse was being used for their garbage situation.
Funny thing, of all the governments in the world, we've never had a communist. We've never had a true communist society. It's astounding.
Ignore the
Let's
50
see.
or so countries that claimed that they used Marx's ideas.
It was real communism. Anyway, many moderates and liberals, meanwhile, either assure us things aren't so bad or pearl clutch at the radicalism of those who insist, yes, it absolutely is, because the radicals are fucking stupid.
They pretty much
Wait,
are. Like, they're an embarrassment in both ways.
Yes, I'll tell you what I hate. I will say what the Tea Party did. The Tea Party made more small government minded people look like a bunch of fucking tools.
Oh, thank you, Christine O'Donnell, who thought masturbation was evil and witchcraft was real.
I'm not a witch!
She thought
Somebody had-
witchcraft was real.
That's amazing.
Somebody had to claim that in 2012 America.
The best part, it was in liberal East Coast land.
Oh my god! Oh my
Carpet
god!
bagging New Jersey and in Delaware.
So those are the peaceful days of American political gridlock and tolerable levels of mass incarceration, corporatism, and military imperialism. And heaven forbid anyone break a window or interrupt traffic.
I've heard this broken window. Oh boy, the broken window fallacy. I love when leftists love to pull that one out.
Oh, go on. I want to hear it for myself.
God damn it! It's like so. Your ways of I guess Reverend King's ways of peaceful of a nonviolent protest of actually follow. You're breaking the rules, but you're not doing anything violent or doing anything like that. I guess we failed on that. We're gonna just give into the we're gonna give into violent notions. It's
Well, it seems they also forgot that King also advocated that everyone was treated equally.
yeah. It's and
In
guess
a
what?
world
None
where
of them.
people didn't give a shit who you were.
And you know what happens with those protests? You know where they were dressed at. You know all the black men and what they were dressed in. They were dressed in their Sunday best when they went to protest.
Oh yeah.
Show that they actually fucking cared. That I'm just like you. I like to dress. I can put a suit and tie on just like you, and I can behave, and no matter what you do, it's gonna. I'm just like you get the point.
Oh, I'd also chime in since you mentioned anyone break a window or interrupt traffic. That's usually the people that do that tend to be cunts who are
Yeah,
going to
Yeah.
loot that place anyway. Because I've noticed that a lot of rioting is literally just selfish cunts looting shit.
yes.
Dads.
It's like it was in I believe it was was it Berlin where it was in Cologne whenever the G8 summit was all those Antifa there They just use it to loot the Apple Store, and other shit like that.
But no, they're reappropriating funds from the capitalists.
Even though
Or,
most of them are
or
selling
talk
them to
about
kids or meats who mommy
or
buys everything.
BLM. I guess BLM protesters. Yes, them going to BLM. BLM riots happening in predominantly black neighborhoods. Oh yeah, the black store owner. I guess we shouldn't worry about his broken windows now, should we?
Anyway, Adam, you're up.
This book was written for all the forgotten humans navigating this clusterfuck. The people living the struggles that most of us only pontificate about.
Oh,
Fuck
oh
you.
God.
Fuck you, chat. Stop using
that is some peak irony. That is some peak irony right there.
You bloviate and pontificate all the time, and for those of you who don't know big boy words, I don't fucking blame you. That just means that he likes to natter on about himself. Nattering on meaning, let me show off how smart I am by using words that have more than 2 syllables.
The fucking whinger. That's all he. Chad's all he is a fucking whinger and a wanker. That's all he is.
Because through our actions, I like how he used cuz as a word. Not cause, cuz. So he immediately goes between thesaurus.com and failing middle school English.
That's our Chad.
Because through our actions, or worsen through our inaction, I think he had a stroke when he wrote that.
Worsen through our inaction.
The way it breaks up, it's like, or worsen through. Ugh, it doesn't. The sentence structure doesn't flow very well at all.
Revolution is not always of my porp. Forever Chad, H potato. It is a cry of outrage, an appeal for empathy, a call for action. So he wrote this book as like a crazy ass manifesto. Nice for you to accidentally reveal that.
This is a terrorist man. It is basically. It is a thinly veiled. It's a very thinly veiled terrorist manifest.
Well, didn't he also write, what was it, something in balaclavas?
A
Ballistic
bomb
something?
on balaclavas, which, yeah, it's terrorist apologism, but at least the system is more coherent than in Sigmata.
And it's
Oh,
free.
you're going to get into this, how this book is at the end.
All right, let's go down to this.
Yeah, there's
my
nothing.
God.
He literally calls himself HQ. HQ out.
I bet he felt really cool while writing that.
This signal kills fascists. Repeat the signal. HQ out.
The chicken tenders are ready.
Dan, not right now. I'm trying to. I'm having a moment of inspiration right now.
He just
Alright.
he just revealed himself as the head of the resistance right there. GG. GG, Chad.
Oh my gosh. Ugh.
Oh,
Yes, this is some. This is some professional art right here. Look at that.
yeah, he used the he forgot that there's a reason why you usually space out words more than this. It's harder to read when you do this.
As long as the Colossus stands, so shall Rome. When the Colossus falls, Rome shall fall. When Rome falls, so falls the world. Didn't one of the most important fascist states in history have an autistic boner about Rome?
Mussolini's Italy. But actually, everything about this stupid thing that he wrote was wrong. The Colossus was not Roman. It was from Rhodes, a
That
Greek
was a
city-state.
The Rhodians. It was their. That was their special stat. That was their special statue. One of the 7 ancient wonders of the world.
Also, a big fuck you to the successor kingdom of Macedon when they failed to take their city-state. Basically, it was made out of the Macedonian army invaded the island. They completely failed in taking it and left a lot of.
Was it made out of bronze shields and such?
It was made out of bronze shields, parts of this big this big siege tower they built called the Helepolis, and other weapons that they just had to give up when they got stuck in mud.
You know, also, it is probably the ultimate fuck you. It is probably the ultimate fuck you statue ever.
But here's the other thing: the Colossus fell a long time ago due to an earthquake, and Rhodes was fine, other than losing that awesome statue. Rome did not fall when the Colossus of Rhodes fell.
I think it's supposed to be a metaphor for something.
You could say couldn't you just replace it like with Colosseum or something like that? Or
Maybe.
I mean, there was a period where earthquake did damage the Colosseum, and I believe it was the early 250 and I think it was the early 200 AD where the Colosseum got damaged for a while.
Well, here's another thing. When Rome falls, so falls the world. Which Rome? You're talking about Western Rome, because that really only affected Europe.
Eastern Rome got along for a decent while before things.
I found what he's talking about. I think the Colossus of Nero.
But Nero was an early Roman emperor, and Rome actually waxed after him.
Oh no! Okay, yeah. This quote is him ripping off someone. A poem by Bede, circa 672 to 735.
The great. He was a great English monk known as Bede. I think he was known for. Wasn't he known for converting a good portion of England to Christianity?
Maybe.
I know he's a saint.
Yeah, that from a poem that he wrote. It was, as long as the Colossus stands, Rome will stand. When the Colossus falls, Rome will also fall. When Rome falls, so falls the world.
Yeah, but that's a poem, though.
Yeah.
That was just
Also,
Chad being an asshole.
Even after Nero, you had some cool shit like the Trajan. Yeah, Trajan's Market, pretty cool. Pretty cool marketplace they built, and also Trajan's Column. It's actually a pretty impressive. It's almost a living. I love that it's a living mural. It's a living mural and a testament of the campaign history of Trajan's reign as emperor.
And don't forget that under I think it was Trajan. Didn't he also take like parts of Scotland?
That would be Hadrian.
Hadrian.
No. Hadrian was the one that built the wall.
Yeah,
he wanted to keep
there was the English Scotland wall, which Rome usually had, but then there was a time where they had southern Scotland.
And he built a beautiful wall. Yeah, in fact, where Hadrian's wall is actually kind of where the split between England and Scotland really began.
Then there's also that little time they had Mesopotamia.
Yeah, I don't really know much about Roman history.
I mean,
we should
I'm
probably
ripping
move
apart
on.
an old guy's poem, but I'm just doing it because Chad's being a cunt.
Look how intelligent I am. It's an old poem, but it's a Statue of Liberty. Eh?
The war. Hey, look, Crunch.
Yeah, we get repetition of all the tables and shit.
It took me a real long time to make this guy, so you better like it.
Go over to 323 for the faction favors, where there's some interesting stuff.
Yep, we already looked at these, so we don't really need to look at them again. It is nice to have it all here, but oh man, if Biggie was here and he wasn't stroking out from this, he would be screaming. You know he would.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
this is still a mess. This is still a mess, even though it's somewhat codified.
I will say this, since I was really fading out when we covered faction favors last time, I think it's a good idea to look a little more in depth since we only really covered the party, which I think we'll cover again just because I don't know if Al saw the part called Tanky Fuck Off or No Vacancy.
What? What?
So let's start with the old men, though, i.e. your faction, Hal, because they're all evil, libertarian, crazy, flyover moon cow old men. Cache. The old men have learned about a massive cache of military ordnance, buried by a prepper or abandoned by an enthusiast. They're not usually... Don't they usually die when those collections come out?
Probably.
Like, isn't it usually like a prepper or an enthusiast just dies and their collection is sold off, usually?
Yeah, or it goes to a state to whoever families it is, and they're trying to figure out what the fuck to do with all this prepackaged food and ammunition and shit like that. Or the house that's built from shipping containers.
Well, the good news is that we're never going to have to worry about food budget again. The bad news is that we'll be eating MREs for the rest of our lives.
Honestly, MREs aren't that bad. I've had a few of them in my time. They're pretty good. At least the newer ones. The older ones I can understand. Though it's sad that you don't get those awesome tins anymore. That potentially haven't been recovered yet. Unfortunately, is located in an extremely secure or difficult to reach place.
You got to trek out to the middle of Montana and dig up an old shipping container.
You have to go see One-Eyed Willie.
What you have to do is you have to go find you have to find the bunker that's built from buried buses.
It's in there.
Or you have to find the house that has food buried in its embedded in its wall.
And you then realize to your horror that it's made out of Chinese Chinese Hanyang 88 rifles, which fall apart when you fire them.
Oh no!
I collected them from the time the Chineses were in their warlord period.
Al, I think you're reading Nottingham.
What page is this again?
Oh, we're on page 323.
323.
Nottingham. A loyalist mayor is using his officer to enrich himself, as well as the sheriff office and white nationalist paramilitary to take his racket. The entire town is being strip mined through eminent domain and civil forfeiture. Oh boy. Oh, get off my property.
Murder that mayor. And last but not least,
Wait a minute. With Nottingham, I feel like this actually was a slightly edited revert. Obviously, this is a hyper-ruralized version of the Dukes of Hazzard episode. Actually,
that's
where
probably where he stole it.
Though Boss Hogg most of the antics of Boss Hogg's is just due to his greed, and he doesn't try to inadvertently harm the town.
Oh god, Dukes of Hazzard in Sigmata. I kind of want to see it.
It'd just be that mission over and over again. Nottingham over and over again.
Let's see. And Esprit de Corps. Anti-Semitism, racism, and conspiracy theory among the old men's rank and file threatens the group's Esprit de Corps. Outsiders to masquerade as new record good English.
Quality.
Determine the source of the ideological cancer and then neutralize it.
The
Literally.
Sorry.
My question though is, what about racism held by the minorities though, or even towards other minorities too? Are we just going to forget that exists?
Oh, that doesn't matter.
I'm really curious on what Chad's thoughts on that would be, and whether or not he'd weasel out of it.
Well, obviously those Koreans were evil capitalists, so they deserve to have their stores ransacked.
So, like I said,
Can we play a Sigmata game where we play as rooftop Koreans? Where it's kind of like a tower defense game. You have to prevent the ransackers from getting to your place.
Can I get to covering the Exodus now, please?
Sorry.
Due to the resource crisis or ethnic cleansing, the faith must migrate a massive contingent of its flock, local or international. The flock is extremely vulnerable during this time and needs shepherds to guide them to safety. So this is where you serve as coyotes and rape a bunch of people.
In sheep's clothing, the faith's leadership suspect a charismatic bishop of predatory behavior, blasphemous edicts, and a messiah conflicts, etc. He must be investigated by a discreet and independent group. Well, great. You don't need a pause there. And if found guilty, dealt with regardless of a potential congregational schism. Sorry, it's really he uses a lot of commas strangely in that one.
He abuses them because he doesn't really know that less is better. Like, the only times you really need commas are when you're joining two ideas together, or if you're going to insert a side thought, or you're about to transition.
And let's look at judges. Missionaries infiltrating, destroying human trafficking rings abroad, as well as exposing other human rights abuses, have suddenly stopped reporting in. Whether they have been detained or gone vigilante, they require salvation.
I was kind of hoping that it was actually just like the biblical judges, and it turns out you run into Samson, who's just murdering a bunch of Paul Blarts with a donkey's jaw.
See, that would be fun.
You can play as the father. Who's the father from Berserk?
Gambino?
Yes, play as Father Gambino in
No, Mosgus.
Father Mosgus in Berserk.
Or alternatively, the one of the other, not judges, but like some of the prophets, like Elijah and Elisha, who summons bears to murder teenagers. Yeah, that actually happened. Some kids were making fun of him, and his response was to pray, and then bears murdered them.
The Old Testament is so goddamn badass.
Oh, no vacancy.
No vacancy.
So
Go ahead,
anarchists have
Adam.
occupied unused properties, i.e. squatting, to shelter squatters and refugees. No, it's to squat themselves. Now the owner wants to demolish the place.
He wants them to pay up, assholes.
Come on, you put like 3 months worth of shit in my living room, and the place is covered with needles. I'm gonna need money for repairs.
It looks like part of the.
I was just gonna say.
It looks like you put holes in the wall.
Alternatively, sorry, man, but I was going to talk. Alternatively, it's, hey, dude, you do know that the foundations are completely rotted and it's about to collapse on itself, right?
Oh man, collapsing is just like capitalist propaganda.
Next week. This just in, a factory has collapsed due to poor maintenance, killing dozens of squatters. Sorry about that, Al. What were you gonna say? I just really wanted to add
it's okay.
that.
I was just being stupid. Because that was a really. I like the idea of we should have no vacancy, but it's played the fact that we're just playing a bunch of bums that are paying our rent, and it's just turns into a game of the squatter versus the property.
The property owner needs to be named Mario and be like an overweight Italian guy with a cigar.
God damn it, guys! It's like it's been about 4 months. 4 months. Where's the rent? Anyway, hold the line. Workers have seized a production facility that supports the regime's war-staining efforts. The bosses want their company men, scabs, and modern-day Pinkertons to clean the mess before the regime finds out. Wait, whoa, that's retarded. I mean, why would they figure out that they've lost production of a major facility? I mean, there's shit like phones, there's shit like cell phones, TV, and all sorts of ways to get in contact. It's not like we're using Telegram or something like that, to where it would take a few days to figure out somebody seized an arms factory. I mean, if Colt got taken over by a bunch of insurgents, I'm sure it'd be plastered all over the news.
Not only that, but due to the nature of news at this time, you have 24-hour cycles, so it would come within the hour. Also, Pinkertons, usually at this point they just call them strikebreakers now. Why are you using such old man terms like fucking Pinkertons and longshoremen? Yeah, I still remember that.
Also, is he forgetting that in some South American countries they hire some crazy groups will go into protest, deliberately hire people to go be rabble rousers at protesters to try to get them to get fights with them. It's a real thing in South American countries.
Oh, this one's good. Tankies fuck off. Just the name. A foreign dictator espousing leftist values is actually inflicting status and nationalist tyranny on the underclass to enrich himself and his bourgeoisie allies. The means of production must be seized from this capitalist and comrades' clothing.
That's
You're
an
good.
interesting, weird mission because Al, think about it like this. Everything else is helping to keep the factions loyal by helping in the nearby local or maybe even regional area. This is you committing like a massive secret agent action to murder a military strongman. You're literally going to like Kablakistan to murder the Vozd of that country.
Wait. I have shit going on we have shit going on in America. If there's like a genocidal dictatorship, isn't our more priorities more at home?
I don't know. Maybe this is like some banana republic in South America that's, all leftist rhetoric but just really making backdeal rooms with the American government.
Wait a
I mean,
minute. Is this
that's the
how
closest I can think of
is this how in,
justifying it.
is this how in Sigmata that we can play Tropico now?
It is.
Here's another thing. Why is this one of our options given that, well, to give you an idea, isn't this what jammers do? Isn't this literally what the Sigmata project was supposed to do according to Chad's own dumb lore?
It's the self-fulfilling prophecy.
Oh no, it's because Chad couldn't think of anything else to put in the party missions.
I have one. Instead of no vacancy with the squatters, why not assist in collectivization, where some rich, industrial thing is trying to buy out a series of small family farms, and they've banded together to form a commune to say no, we'll force you to not buy us with our money, and you got to stop the corporation from actually buying them out.
That would require actual local activism and a sense of community, which Chad clearly doesn't care about.
Yeah, I'm just saying that because it seems Chad forgot that it's not just the workers in a communist slash socialist party. One of their other planks was always the farmer, too.
That's usually the first plank they always cut, and always understandably ends with millions dead.
The makers with their dirty laundry. A maker has a personal problem, e.g., a familial scandal, but they've met their match. An activist, employee, commissioner, district attorney, shareholder, or estranged lover who cannot be blackmailed, bought, or intimidated.
Okay, that's a strange one.
You're basically being hired by a rich person to murder that person.
The makers need someone taken down a peg or publicly humiliated. Don't they have fuck off money to do that? It's difficult to tell whether this is driven by market factors, personal animus, or just playful rivalry to alleviate the boredom with the impossible means. Their missions are kind of boring compared to this other things. Why does it the other factions get these fantastic things and they just get this boring personal shit?
Obviously, this is the faction that Chad hates because they're dirty capitalists.
Wouldn't a more interesting idea be along the lines of you have to bodyguard one of the maker's close associates? Like, I got a friend coming in to donate to insert public charity here, but the guy's made quite a few enemies in the Freedom Fist, so I'm afraid they might actually do something even with our money.
Or you go to do corporate espionage on their behalf. Wouldn't that be interesting?
Yeah,
Yeah,
one of their missions is to sabotage a refinery, a mine, or something that's owned by a business conglomerate loyal to the regime, so that they can eventually buy it out.
Or alternatively, you have to break into military factories to find out specs. It's like, I've always wanted to build my own aircraft, but well, you know where to buy it best? The military. So I want you to go into their Grumman plant or their Northrop plant and see what their newest generation aircraft are like. That way I can model my own engine based on their performance specs and then cut the hell out of the civilian airline corporations or something like that.
I mean, that's more interesting. Well, hey, Al, your idea is actually in here. Meet my associates.
The makers need to attend a meeting in hostile territory, e.g., Russian embassy, cartel kingpins, estate, etc. They need a highly capable escort to ensure their safety and protect their interests, and do so without the benefit of tactical equipment, if necessary.
I just realized that they're not really millionaires in the safe sense. They seem more like mafiosos because that's the only thing Chad can think of when it comes to having a lot of money.
Also, my question is with the makers is like I'm sure there's many ultra wealthy people that have are that will actually love their country when to throw as much money as they want at it to save their country.
Ooh, I have a cool idea for a mission. Since not all makers are like evil businessmen, how about one of them's just like a dumb ditzy socialite that's like totally wanting to make a movie about the plights of poor people, but's having problem getting a producer because the regime's leaning on him. Think you can help? Okay, thanks. Something like that.
That could actually be fun. Like you have to break into some director's house and intimidate him.
Or let me think of other industries. You got like a Steve Jobs or a Bill Gates going, I've been working on these new pieces of technology and I want you to stress test it. You get a blade. It's like an experimental blade that you have to test that may or may not hurt you or cause
Or
negative
what you have
effects.
with one of the makers is that you have a one of the makers is actually works for the arms industry, like it's like your Colt or your Browning, and he says he wants you to go test the merchandise, as it were, i.e., take out people, while going to advertise his product.
That's not bad. Or alternatively, it's a guy. It's like, okay, let me tell you this. I was trying to make a competing weapon for the U.S. arms, for the U.S. Freedom Fries arms, and they rejected it. So I want you to sabotage. I want you to demonstrate any flaws in their tech. So you basically, the idea being, he'll give you free shipments of his rejected weapon design if you manage to prove that his product was better.
Yeah, that actually sounds like sounds fun, like out of a video game or something like that. Something we'd actually want to play. But no, let's play this. Let's play this boring personal horse shit.
Let's make all the makers evil money grubbing assholes. Come on, think about it. You have dumb, so ditzy like actors and actresses. Yeah, you have rich like farm chemists guys making a million patents that save the world from hunger.
Or you have just the people that they made money by they made money by the land. They're actually the rich farmers. Like there's your Jimmy Carter's, or stuff like that.
Yep, Jimmy Carter's. What other businesses are they forgetting? Like fast food guys. Like you can have Colonel Sanders. Actually, I don't think Colonel Sanders is dead in '86, is he?
I don't know.
The Church of Chicken, the Church of Sanders
Yeah, you can
is
have Colonel
actually.
Sanders be like, I'm trying to help as best as I can, but well, it's really hard to make sure to make it's really hard, and especially since they're looking at my company like I'm doing things wrong because I hire whoever. If you can get them off my back, I can guarantee that the poor get fed with some of my chicken. Because I can pay out of no cost to you, or out of no cost to you. It's all on me. Because Colonel Sanders is the type of person who would give free chicken.
Well, what about people that are just working in really mundane industries, like a tire? What about a guy that made his money in the tire industry? It's just he owns a bunch. I mean, he's so boring that's making the cliche. They're the rich evil businessmen. When there's many more ways to make money, and not a lot of them fit that archetype. In fact, usually most of them look at those guys as a bunch of assholes.
Or alternatively, like one of the makers are like, hey, dudes, my businesses have been nationalized, and you know what that means? My workers are going to get stiffed. I always make sure that they got good pay and benefits. So I need you to try to make sure that their lives are as comfortable as possible by warning them ahead of time or something.
So like a DuPont situation.
Yeah, where basically they get bought out by the evil fascist government, and the guy's like, okay, I know for a fact that they're going to have their benefits cut, so I kind of want you to make sure that they at least have some amenities. In exchange is the money I got in the buyout to fund your resistance movement.
Or if you want to have interfaction conflict, the workers are trying to cause trouble within my company, even though I actually treat my workers pretty decent.
Like, even mentioned, I just gave them a raise, too, on top of it all. And he did. Like, he actually isn't lying. He turns out he upped their wages by $1.50 extra an hour.
We should move on.
True. Yeah, it's just you could tell Chad really hates the capitalists, even though he's a capitalist that made this product.
Oh no, this was other people's money that he invested. I mean, technically, he's a
yeah.
con man. At least I think. Well, I'm for legal reasons. I'm not saying that Chad Walker is a con man. I'm just speculating that he might be.
Well,
I
I
suspect
would
he
say
had
he might be, because wasn't his previous job in the tech industry, and doesn't that pay quite well?
Yeah.
apparently it was cybersecurity or something like that.
Chad, why are you hating yourself?
Everyone knows that all leftists are all leftist men are self-loathing. I thought that was just a well-known stereotype.
So speaking of loathing, hey Al, do you want to see the faction fallouts? We actually both read this in concert, but I don't think you saw these, so. These are the situations that happen if on the strategy turn you roll poorly. And that's the thing with Chad. This will eventually happen. So the old men, last stand. Minutemen attack and or take over public utilities, government administration offices, and other soft targets of the state in a futile attempt to cripple the regime and awaken more patriots. Basically, Chad was using the Bundy Ranch as an inspiration.
Sovereignty. Fringe elements within the old men begin devoting resistance personnel propaganda towards establishing a sovereign states. Oh boy. Rural fiefdoms and that horde supplies engage in banditry and over property. You know, honestly, be fun to play as one of those rural fiefdoms. That'd be kind of fun.
Well, to give you an idea, I think a game like Sigmata, it would have been more interesting if it was just based on warlord period China. Because imagine if, like, one of your contacts, i.e. for the makers, is the gangster governor of Jiangxi province, big-eared fucking do of the Triad.
Great.
And because he's so rich, his army is one of the few that can't be bribed. Or alternatively, you manage to accumulate enough money, you instantly bribe an army away.
Like maybe that's one of the maker's abilities. You can literally just bribe a Freedom Fist patrol to fuck off.
Like, I think it would be more interesting if this was taking place in say, a war-torn shithole rather than America, because derangement syndrome.
Uh, like, I mean, bombs and balaclavas kind of goes there, but it doesn't get really interesting. It just because it's just Syria.
Oh, that
Syria
sucks.
with the names filed off.
Should have been Tropico with the name filed off.
Yeah, but like again, this setting could have been interesting. There's like an idea here. It just gets wrapped up in Trump derangement syndrome.
And it doesn't expand on anything, really.
It's always the nucleus of a good idea. It's just well, anyway, let's continue on.
Oh yeah, with the ethno-state. So, finding agreement in the tenets of nativism, the old men establish a strategic alliance with the regime and act immediately to eradicate another faction that threatens to take power once the resistance has won. Basically, when you're about to win, this is Chad saying, no, you can't win! You can't win! I can't win! You can't win! So, the factions will, if you fail a loyalty check, will instantly betray you.
There's no actual limit, so it's possible for every one of them to betray you.
No, I think when one does it and destroys another, you have to take the two survivors, and they won't ever betray you.
What if I'd like to still have them all pissed off, and you just say fuck it, and you just go to get the nuclear stock. You just decide to end it all.
Let's see. Holy War. Radical bishops of the faith issue an edict approving suicide terrorism as a means of punishing the civilian population, which they see as complicit in the persecution and eradication of the faithful.
So that's
Allahu
the
Akbar.
priest, Allahu Akbaring.
Dominionism. Radical bishops of the faith call for the annexation of territory to establish and expand God's dominion, a brutal religious state whose puritanical enforcers stone adulterers, castrate homosexuals, and crucify abortionists. So basically, the Islamic State,
Yeah,
or
that's
or most non-secular Islamic countries.
Yeah, that's the thing with Chad. He seems to think Christians are that bad. And there
I'm
are
sure
some
it's-
that are, but they're like in Africa.
All that kind of got wiped out during the 30 Years' War.
Yeah, that's that kind of happens when Germany got utterly raped and over 7 million people died in the continent in the early 17th century.
Let's see, Christopher. Okay, that's a contradiction. That's interesting. Finding agreement in the need for the state to purge moral degeneracy, the faith establishes a strategic alliance with the regime and acts immediately to eradicate another faction that threatens to take power once the resistance has won.
So forming, like I said the last time we read this, forming Phalange is Spain. So Vanguardism. Militants within the party begin a campaign of political assassinations targeting bankers, business owners, and political pundits when it considers counter-revolutionaries.
So normal communist shit.
Notice the one unique thing, though, out of all of these. It actually affects loyalty of another party.
Red imperialism. Russophiles within the party begin devoting resistance personnel, propaganda resources, supporting the Soviet imperialist adventures. Revolutionary fervor duelants as the party is co-opted by Kremlin apologists.
Communism was ruined by the Soviets, says Chad Walker, the premier capitalist, who would be executed as an enemy of the state in any actual communist country.
No, he's not a capitalist. He's one of those He's just a classic dime a dozen armchair socialist.
Oh, so he's a lumpenprole who would also be lined up against the wall and executed as an enemy of the state.
Is no new Soviet man.
Speaking of new Soviet man, Randall, take us away with the next one.
Neo-Stalinism. Taking their cue from the Bolsheviks, the party establishes a strategic alliance with the regime and acts immediately to eradicate another faction that threatens to take power once the resistance has won.
Yeah, here's the thing that I can't quite get, is it wouldn't be Neo-Stalinism, it should have been National Bolshevism.
You missed a great idea there, Chad.
Well, it would have made more sense, because while Stalinism is far enough along the horseshoe that it could maybe make the jump, it would have made more sense.
Or also you could just say, oh wait, never mind.
You go on.
The idea that I had read this one. I'll have my thoughts after this.
Alright, so Flight of the Elites. The makers begin fleeing to neutral countries in Europe, liquidating all their assets and exfiltrating as much wealth and expertise as humanly possible on their way out. They'll be sure to return once all the fighting stops, though.
So normal stuff.
Yeah, normal business.
Even though, wait a minute. Is this even more evidence of that the makers of Czar? Apparently, free market loyalty. The makers begin devoting resistance personnel, propaganda, and resources to protect their own assets and enterprises. Resistance cells begin doing whatever it takes to ensure the makers' money keeps flowing. So wait, are we just running drug labs and shit like that?
Apparently.
I like how it damages the international community, too, for some reason.
And oligarchy. to ensure the anarcho-capitalist utopia
Yes,
they have been
really.
fighting for, the makers establish a strategic alliance with the regime and act immediately to eradicate another faction that threatens to take power once the resistance has won.
Since this is capitalism and fascism, wouldn't Rexism work better right there?
Chad's a moron and forgot that the old men were your caps.
Can I just say that whenever I see the makers, I'm always reminded of Maker's Mark whiskey.
Good stuff.
I think it's just
Yeah.
the desire to drink your pain away.
Oh God, it
The
is.
answer's not the bottom of the bottle, Randall.
Well,
never
no, it
is.
is. I've been drinking the hell out of Teddy's orange cream soda, and it's been really helping a lot. You should. I do not advocate doing this with booze, though. You will die.
Yeah. So should we read over the dossier or move on to some of the articles?
So the receiver dossier is just kind of the blank character thing. I recommend looking through some of them. Some of the receiver dossiers, because it gives you an idea on the type of person who would play this game.
328 is pretty good. Hugh Jackman's profile.
Hugh Jackman's profile? Oh, there he is. That's Zipper.
Wait, yes. He's Zipper Man. Oh, wait, is this if this was is this a JoJo's reference? Is this
329's really good too. Oh God,
yeah.
the next three pages after Hugh Jackman are perfect. Okay, so
let's see. Conroy, Corey Wilkins or Conroy. I don't fucking know.
I'm just calling him Hugh Jackman.
Hugh Jackman, surface, Caucasian, male, 30s, mullet. Oh no.
Maybe he should be Joe Dirt instead of Hugh Jackman.
Sinewy, wild card, reckless, friends for life, random attributes, smokes cigars, loves denim vests.
Wait, is this Neil Breen?
Oh no, it is.
What the hell is a Canadian tuxedo? Is that just flannel?
Eats nothing but tuna fish. Has 3 laptops which are actually broken. Insists that he's not racist.
Lives in a van.
Why does cishet have to be an important thing? What kind of what normal person is going to write that down as some of the basic description?
Because my representation.
Story: recovering heroin addict, jazz drummer, former cable man. So this is Larry the Cable Guy, bankrupted by mall order. Is that mall or mail?
It's mail order, but Chad's a moron.
It's actually pretty rich. What sort of things that?
It's because he's white.
Oh, I gotta work with these damn darkies. I just hate the guy that he just hates everything. He just hates the world. It's just
look at his
it's not
face.
That he's.
Is that the face of a man who loves his life?
No, this is end me, world. End.
I think he's the kind of guy who says some of my best friends are black, like every other sentence.
Oh, no,
even when there's nothing relative. Oh, we're out of bread. Some of my best friends are black.
Well, I think in this case it's more, given his face, he probably has just killed a black person, and he's like, I can't hide it.
Let's see, Kosai Mao. Oh, on 329 is Clowner.
No,
that's his
cleaner.
handle.
I don't know why I know Elite, but I do.
Let's see, Cambodian refugee, male, 40s, Hollywood hair, mustache. Wait, that's a mustache? I thought that was just his upper lip.
Wait, that thing's a guy?
I guess so. Seemingly mute. Okay, fun to roleplay as, I guess. Vice Warcher. Jersey Vice.
So
okay,
dresses
good.
like Miami Vice. Got it.
Thick glasses, fingerless gloves, the Tumblr phrase that wasn't really in existence in 1986.
I would say cripplingly retarded, because you only find asexuality in cripplingly retarded people usually.
Or he's just not disinterested with everything.
That would make more sense, but this implies that a person who creates these characters actually knows that sort of thing.
Story. PSYOP of private BBS, day trader, movie buff, expert chef, intel officer under Pol Pot in the mid 70s, murdered other officers and fled to the United States. Bisexual. So wait, how can you be asexual and bisexual at the same time? They literally...
Because
how was he not murdered by his own family?
For reasons.
Because he murdered his own. He murdered his own. He probably brutally murdered his own family and enjoyed it.
Also, that's not the face of a native Cambodian. I'm pretty sure it isn't.
Yeah, I think it's all fucky because of gay robot magic.
Well, partially, but I get the vibe that, like, if it wasn't gay robots, wouldn't he look a lot more Jamaican?
Kinda.
Like Jamaican or Caribbean?
No, I'm kind of getting Indian vibes.
Okay, maybe Cambodian's not
maybe Indonesian, possibly Indonesian.
Well, no, if that's what you're getting, then I'm gonna redact myself there, because that means that he's pretty close. Chad is. Still, this is one of our heroes, a guy who worked under fucking Pol Pot.
Oh wait, he's a cyborg. He worked under Pol Pot. Is this Monsoon from Metal Gear Revengeance?
Yes.
It's Monsoon's adopted brother.
His special needs brother.
Wash away the...
He's gonna teach the resistance about memes, the DNA of the soul.
He's gonna drown them all in chocolate rain. Nature's force, Jack. Chocolate rain. Oh wow, he has the Thanos snap. See that?
Hey, where? Oh yeah.
Ultimate.
He does.
Does he have the pudding ray? Aw. Does the previous guy have pudding ray?
Aw, no, they don't.
I'm trying to see if any of them have the pudding ray, and they all don't, which is the lamest thing. That's sad. Because that radio free radicals thing was great.
That's like one of the good ideas in this. Like one of the little kernels of interesting.
The Thanos snap and pudding ray.
So, want to move on to the articles?
No, there's one more that I have to highlight because Chad is such a piece of shit. The next page, Isabel Araujo.
What's the significance of that name?
That is the name of a murdered transsexual person.
No, I think it was Gwen Araujo.
I don't know where Isabel... Wait a minute. Did Phil donate money to this?
Oh my god.
Because that is Phil's fake name.
Oh, it's ADF. It's ADF. He might have.
But Araujo is from Gwen Araujo, who died, who was murdered.
Let's see. Brazilian immigrant, transgendered woman.
Using a dead person to make money. Good job, Chad.
My question is, why would a Brazilian want to immigrate to the United States when it's under this fucking crazy regime? Doesn't make any sense.
80s Brazil is actually worse. No, to give you an idea, during the 80s, every country in South America was suffering from hyperinflation. Like, Brazil suffered from it real bad, Argentina even more.
Hasn't Argentina been bankrupted like 5 or 6 times?
Mm-hmm. Oh, and also Venezuela was doing pretty poor. The only reason it was able to kind of do well was oil was going up.
So, so his backstory is he used his life savings as coal in a like a steamship to come to the fascist United States because there was food there.
Oh, he seems to be an autist. He loves Saturday morning cartoons. Oh wait, he's a gunsmith. Actually, this was an idea for a character that I had in Fallout, to where this was this almost really like child-minded gunsmith idiot savant that really enjoys cartoons of the time.
So what you're saying is you made that one character who blows himself up if you give him that thing in Fallout 2.
More or less.
So
So,
also, I think Phil did spend money because transgender woman wears
uh,
gauche makeup, obsessed with guns and cartoons.
oh, but it's Portuguese instead of Google translated Spanish.
Well, Chad has final word on everything, I think.
Yeah, true. I crush
Become
it.
an exploding junk. Allahu Akbar. Ultimate Harvester becomes an exploding junk golem. Literally Allahu Akbar.
Oh, and he can make anime real video drones.
Can murder you with China from Axis Powers Italia. Oh, even as shit kickers, which and a Leatherman, which actually does give me the idea that yeah, Phil wrote this. Or Chad helped Phil write this, given Phil can't write.
The person we're talking about, go look up on YouTube at Occupy Wall Street. It's the goofy, fat-looking potato guy dressed up as Mao.
He thinks he's a Mexican woman now. By the way, he's just a fat Italian white boy.
Is Australantia the fictitious nation he created?
Oh yeah, he also lost rights to that in 2016 when he committed a little Shoah in his imagination country.
That's
All
hilarious.
because
You lost the rights to your own shitty fictitious nation.
and I think we're done here.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't see anything else other than Chad's waifu.
Yeah.
And that's the last page anyway, so.
Yeah. The book.
She has
Yeah. Oh boy.
Oh, that's
Can scream a destructive laser beam. Yes,
I think
laser.
that is enough, so let's look at the Kickstarter.
Yeah, fuck
Well,
this
actually,
book.
before we do, let me So, what did you guys think of the book since we finished it technically? We skipped a lot
Okay.
for copyright reasons.
Okay, when it began, I thought this was going to be a book that it rolls around to being so bad that it's amazing, with just the idiotic lore that just of bad writing. Then it rolled around to just really hating it. It's almost a non RPG. It's just a thinly veiled terrorist manifesto that says we do not commit terrorism, bomb parliament in the tiniest disclaimer you'll ever see on a piece of paper.
yeah. I'll be a little more generous this. Like we have like a rough rating scale on here of decent, playable, trash, and garbage fire, and I'm gonna put this in the trash.
It's in the
And
trash. Yes, it's in the trash where it belongs.
like there are at least some ideas here that could be good if handled by someone competent.
You
Like
tell that wasn't a jerk off like Chad Walker.
I can't
the
quite
the
put it in trash though, because there's not really enough to say that there is really a system in place.
um yeah. Here, I'll go through what's actually what the I'll go through what little redeeming value there is in this. I do like the concept of 1980s dystopia, where it's kind of like a blend of the bright, sunny Morning in America shit of the Reagan's 80s with like Cold War dystopian stuff. But this, it doesn't come off as in this.
No,
It's
I'm
post black.
surprised he. I'm surprised. I'm surprised he didn't get one of the greatest inspirations. Robo fucking cop.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he didn't
like
even try.
I mean, RoboCop would be a great inspiration for this kind of stuff. I mean, he doesn't like the hyper corporatist attitudes of the '80s, the Cold War paranoia, militarism, and stuff like that. You think that he would have taken more cues from the Paul Verhoeven film?
I think he like references it in the Kickstarter, but I don't really get that. I get a lot of
It's
that.
only in the pictures I've noticed where he really tries.
Yeah, the pictures where he tries are actually interesting because what little we get of the lore could actually be interesting, like you know, like having a, do the Escape from LA thing where there's like a hyper fundamentalist Christian sect in charge that practices like exorcism of technology.
Another one thing I do like is I do like the frame of the ideas, the way blades work. I always like whenever we deal with cyborgs. I like the idea of I wish you would have played with it more. I love the idea with cyborgs and androids of modular parts, where different parts do different things. I like that, but it's thought out so half-assed that it's just mostly just a probably in service of nothing. And Blades is a terrible name for anything that's a combat thing. I don't know why they weren't called servos, programs, or or even call it DOS or something like that.
Yeah, like I've read through Bombs and Balaclavas, which uses the same basic system, but it's much more refined and condensed and actually makes somewhat sense.
Was that written before or after this book?
It was after,
Okay. So
I think.
I here's my thoughts on what the fuck I just finished. There is almost no mechanical system available in this book. To give you an idea, this last section had maybe what, 15 pages that showed how much crunch there really was out of 300. It doesn't clarify situations that will almost assuredly pop up, like how much exposure does a squad of freedom fries cause if they start sharpshooting you from buildings?
You know what had more crunch, Adam? Some of the old choose your own books that choose your own adventure books that you would actually have like hit points and stuff like that.
Yeah,
There's
those
actually
long ones that are like, I don't know, 500 pages long. Those
one such example from the '80s is Sagra the Barbarian, obviously a Conan ripoff, but it's actually it's a very fun choose your own adventure series in its own.
like, I get the idea of what Chad was trying to do, which was a minimal crunch, heavy fluff sort of things to quickly get in and get out. But the system he has doesn't really work, and it actually punishes the player more than anything else. It's not fair. It actually makes continuing to play harder because the longer they play, the more likely they are to lose their allies, which give them occasional boosts. It's really quick to just instantly get destroyed by death squad officers or having jammers pop in to murder you. It's a high lethality game, which in these sorts of situations, it could be interesting, but it doesn't really feel like this should be high lethality. It's not like
I,
Paranoia, where you have a six-pack of clones, for example.
again, it. I've I've thought about this. There's kind of like a conflicting. There's like a major conflict of tone here, because on one hand you have gritty freedom fighters fighting against an authoritarian government, where it would make sense to have a more high lethality system, like the idea being that you may die, but as long as you repeat the signal, the resistance will live on.
And the character
And then
sheet kind of highlights that since it's pretty simplistic.
yeah, and then you have which is the magic signal? You turn into magic robots and shoot lasers.
Honestly, Sigmata would have been better. Sigmata would have been much better if it didn't have gay robots in it, and it was just normal everyday guys going to fight against all odds against a fascistic regime.
Or if,
Also,
or
to
if
make it high lethality, the sheet could be simplified further rather than rolling your stats or ordering them. You're given a set of numbers, you plug and play, you can create a character in like 20 minutes tops.
they do that in bombs and balaclavas.
That way, yeah. If you
So
die, you
proving
can
that
come right back in.
which proves that Chad knew that this was shit and just rushed it to crap it out.
Isn't
It is a first draft. I can
isn't
tell.
bombs and balaclavas free too?
Yeah, it's free.
Oh.
And the thing is, I think you could actually use it to like play a Grand Theft Auto-esque game. Like ignore Chad's stupid fluff about Syria and just be, you have make your gangsters, you're gonna take over your section of whatever city and run it like that.
But
Can we have magical ghosts fighting each other in these gang wars? That'd be great.
if you're talking about magical ghosts, you'd probably want to play a White Wolf game. The biggest sins that I have for this are that it is very clearly a first draft that Chad didn't finish. Because there's a lot of ambiguous situations, like I mentioned, and there was a lot of working titles, like all
Also-
four factions, for example.
Also, some of the lore contradicts itself. Like the economy's in shambles, but apparently the economy's booming, and the makers haven't all fucked off from this cycle of nationalization and crippling hyperinflation. It doesn't make the lore is paradoxical.
Which leads to my biggest complaint. This is a fluff-heavy game, and the fluff is very minimal, and it's very apparent that Shad did not spend more than maybe a first draft's effort on it.
So this is a
He's
choice.
trying to do an 80s setting. You mentioned it, Randall, where he completely fails to miss the tone. My thinking is he tried to make this a current year game and then realized it would age it, so knocked it back to the 80s, plus it allowed him to indulge his tech fetish.
Yeah, which I don't know.
He wasted
If
4 fucking chapters on that. That's 4 chapters you could have dedicated to actually building up the world, not the fucking tech.
is it just me, or if he just blatantly made this an Orange Man bad game, I think it would actually improve it. Like because of how ridiculous it could be.
Orange Man
you're gonna take down you're gonna go take down Richard Spencer, you're gonna kick down the White House door and unload an M16 into Donald Blumft. I mean, there's actually
I did see there was grand old. I saw it was it grand old party or a grand old. I forget what it is, but it was a 3.5 spoof supplement that was made by third party companies where it made various neocon candidates into monsters, and it was interesting. And you could tell that the whole point was tongue in cheek. Honestly, a tongue in cheek game would have been probably a better tone to go for this.
where like the regime is cartoonishly evil. Like they're firing Mexicans out of cannons over the border.
Or they're kicking, or they have literal electroshock therapy camps where they fry gay people's brains until they're basically vegetables and are deemed cured. Like, to give you an idea, my biggest problems are that Chad wastes a lot of time and a lot of words to say very little.
Isn't that what us? But the problem is, Adam, that's the standard leftist. A lot of big empty words.
Well, it's a lot of words to say very little. He could have cut 4 entire chapters out for tech. He also really didn't build up the weird sci-fi elements that he kind of shoved in at the last minute, because the receiver concept really feels like that was tacked on near the end, and that the
Yeah.
final product was supposed to be bombs and balaclavas, but he thought maybe you needed some White Wolf style superheroics using demons or whatever Chad felt like ripping off that day. The
Marvel
receiver
movie. Like,
powers that they have were interesting. Like I said, the pudding ray is disgusting, and I love it. Um, also,
I like the idea of trying to that astral projection of Pac-Man to try to scare someone to death with a want would be that's kind of fun.
yeah.
like to give you an idea, if they went kind of more, if he went kind of more into going heavily into that weird sci-fi where receivers were part of many failed projects, so you could play a receiver or things like a Soviet ape man, psychic dolphin, a astral projectionist that uses their powers to map out bombing sites.
You could play as a furry terrorist. So then there you go. It's got everything for the left. It's got everything. It's got everything that everyone likes. At least people that like to play these kinds of games.
Like if
Again,
he played
it-
around with the weird Cold War tech and
Or
actually made the
psychic.
setting feel like it was 80s
So the
America
new
at
Earth,
its
so the
worst.
new Earth Warriors wasn't a crock of shit in this.
Project Stargate panned out. You really can destroy Soviet missiles by just burning a picture of it and thinking really hard.
Yeah, like
That's true.
psychics were found to be real, and when they mean psyops, the fascist America genuinely does have a psyops core.
So they have clairvoyant. I like. So you could go into they were Operation Paperclip. These were people, the ex members of the Vril Society. You could go with some really weird shit
Like
Like the the regime is searching for Agartha, the mystical city at the center of the world. Really, go into the really weird Helena Brodvosky Hellboy stuff.
and you have weird things like you could have scenarios like your receiver, like it's a party of a mixture of receivers, a renegade ape man, and something like that, and then all of a sudden all of a sudden something phases into reality and you go, oh, what's that? And it's Die Glock. And out of it comes a few stormtroopers saying that teleportation technologies worked. The boss was right. They're right here. Like weird text like Die Glock is a teleportation device. What other weird things can they also do?
Oh, the sun gun idea,
Sun gun.
like the orbiting space station that uses a giant magnifier glass to ant people.
You could have Dr. Mengele as part of their Operation Paperclips. So you have not just the robotic cyborg soldiers, but you have genetic super soldiers, your super mutants with the with the James Crockett missiles that explode with radiation.
you mean Davy Crockett.
David Crockett.
Again, this kind of goes back to the issue of tone. Like, it's this weird splice between low power, desperate and gritty resistance fighters game and high power, wacky 1980s technology game, and it just doesn't pan out. Like, either he should have either picked one and gone with it, or just scrap the whole thing.
This is just two half-eaten ideas shat out on a page. That's all it is.
There's one more thing that I have to highlight. The yo-yoing between high lethality and letting the players do whatever they want. It punishes the players regularly by making their dice rolls actually pretty hard to achieve. Because you need a certain amount of successes, and it's on D6s, so it's easy to fail.
Also, it also punishes the DM when the players say, "Yeah, fuck your story. We're gonna go, fuck this. We're gonna go our own. We're gonna go our own way."
And
Adam, I will issue a correction there because actually it's on a mixture of D10s and D6s.
thank you for correcting me. Sometimes D10s are used, although they're pretty rare.
No, for example, on the last page, see that aggression 4?
Mhm.
Roll 4 D10 and 1 D6.
Oh yeah, so the D6s represent your bad stat, and D10s represent you trained in it, which is kind of neat. But at the same time, it's still, if you have nothing but D6s or D10s, you're still relying on pretty low odds to succeed. And ultimately, I would say that it's garbage. It's not dumpster fire, but it's trash because there's not really enough to make it a game. It's lacking a lot of key elements, and the world itself is barely fleshed out. This was clearly done in maybe a month.
No, there's a weird idea that Chad actually got the money and then just and he spent it all. So it's in this so in this Tim and Eric S fashion, he has to cobble together a bunch of ideas and deliver on the product, so it doesn't look like he's a scam artist on Kickstarter.
To an idea I had is Sigmata basically the modern equivalent of those Christian games from the 90s, you know, where they just take Pac-Man or Doom or whatever and we're gonna slap some crosses on it. There, are you scared about little Billy playing those heathen
But
games?
Randall, there's a fundamental difference. You can actually play those.
Yeah,
You
that's
can't
what
play
I'm
Sigmata.
bringing it up.
You can play Super Noah's Ark 3D, and you can shoot goats with your slingshots. I can't do anything in Sigmata because I don't know how it runs.
Like 5/8 of the time, unless you're dealing with tanks or another receiver, the DM has to make up on the fly how much exposure they do. Is it by degrees of failure, by degrees of success? It's not clarified. And it's because of that, I almost want to say that it's also kind of unplayable. In its base state, I don't think it's really playable.
So so you're going for a true namer tier on this.
It's not a dumpster. It's not quite dumpster fire level. It's easily garbage, but I actually can't argue that you can even play it.
It is in this unique limbo. It's dumpster fire would be there's nothing salvageable about it whatsoever. There's skeletons of there's bears.
2 good games you can come out with this. There's 2 potentially good settings or RPGs that you can come out from that.
This very clearly needed at least 6 months, 6 months more in the 6 more months to put on the grill
Chad
to get
needed
out.
to decide what exactly he wanted to make. Does he want to do weird Cold War, like kind of like, you know how Deadlands is the Weird West, where you play
Yeah.
up a lot of the weird supernatural stuff from those times, and using Native American lore and weird myths combined with super science and steampunk?
Yeah, and it creates a truly fun and unique setting.
So he could have done weird Cold War, where all the stupid and insane money pits that the US and the Soviet Union put money down onto succeeded. Nuclear tanks, yes. That weird flying bathtub jet, flying jeep, yes. Rocket propelled helicopters, yes.
Yes.
Soviet ape-man army, yes. Psychic dolphins that can defuse mines and Allahu Akbar into ships, yes.
I want to see. I want to see tow missile backed polar bears. Damn.
Regular usage of bat bombs, yeah. Like weird
The receivers like, oh shit, it's a bat bomb, and they hear the screeching of tens of thousands of bats.
Cat bombs too, like all cat, cat observation equipment, like all of this weird stuff that they blew money on pans out, and they get regularly used. And instead of it being due to Joe McCarthy, have it be that J. Edgar Hoover commits a silent coup d'etat in the 1950s because of like Henry Wallace becoming president. Henry Wallace, the great red apologist that was kicked off of FDR's ticket. The one who who wanted to create a modern day Shangri fucking law.
Oh my god.
So have J. Edgar Hoover kick him out of control and silently lead it from his position in the FBI, and there you go, the beginnings of a dictatorship led by the CIA.
And eventually it evolves into the 1980s. The Cold War was at its peak. There's like a parody of Reagan in office, who's like an uber Christian fundamentalist. And like there's again.
No, don't do Reagan because Reagan had Pat Robertson.
Yes.
Or Jerry Falwell.
Jerry Falwell.
And then replace Brezhnev with some crazy hardcore guy.
Oh, no, I got it. Beria got into office after Stalin.
Beria's not bad. But I'm thinking more like, you know, the crazy Russian general Baron von Ungern Sternberg? Have someone like him be the new Vozd of the like just recently brought up Vozd of the Soviet Union.
Sternberg. Wait a minute. Is that the?
That's the insane
Is
Russian
that
general that conquered Mongolia and claimed he was Genghis Khan reborn.
That sounds amazing. That sounds
So
amazing.
have him become the new Vozd, and he believes that he's like Peter the Great reborn.
So like there's a threat. So yeah, you have like the threat. Again, you get the Cold War threat of nuclear warfare with this. Like you have to balance out the resistance actions with like the doomsday clock mechanic. There's like a mechanic where if you destabilize things too much too quickly, a nuclear war ends up breaking out, and all your efforts are for nothing.
But for this weird, high-powered, weird Cold War, I wouldn't make you a resistance group. I would make you CIA operatives or KGB members.
Whichever one you want to play. I like the idea of elaborate spy versus spy, and this is a Sigmata's more of a war is the real where the real the hot parts of the Cold War. So you're going to fight in fantastic laboratories. In the Bikini Atoll really wasn't wiped away. In reality, it's an elaborate hyperbase center there, and as KBGB operatives, you're to infiltrate the submarine, the submerged base underneath there to get the dolphin technology.
And since psychic powers exist, you can even have weird stuff like, yeah, those, you know, the monks of Asia actually do have strange mystical powers, like the ability to kill people with a touch, or light themselves, or just even like control their body heat.
Does this mean that katanas folded 7,000 times have magical powers?
Not quite that, but due to psychic powers existing, those who believe hard enough can have weird
So
things like
this
that
is
happen.
basically the warp. So we've created the warp in this scenario.
You could even, yeah, you could have it be a weird prequel to 40K, although I imagine G-dubs would too. And you also like I said, you just do weird things like that, and or you do what Bombs and Balaclavas did, where it's a gritty resistance, and I wouldn't have it be in like the U.S. I would have it be in Tropico with the name filed off, so it's still a little wacky, but more in the Fallout dark comedy way.
So you're taking down a mustache twirling banana republic dictator.
You're basically taking out 1950s the Adam West Batman's Joker if he was president of a banana republic. Oh, hey, Biggie. Welcome to the post-mortem of the bloated corpse that is Sigmata.
I was studying for finals, and I totally forgot again that we were doing this.
You didn't miss much. You missed all of the crunch that Chad actually wrote in the book. It's 10 pages long.
At this point, I don't fucking care because there's nothing of value to be gained other than talking to you guys, of course. But I'm studying for finals, for God's sakes, so I can get a real person job. And Chad's still angry at life. He's mad on the internet.
You did also miss his crazy manifesto where he blamed everyone for Orange Man getting elected.
Even the third-party voters?
Yeah, all of them. Left, right. He's like, you're all shit, especially you leftists that voted for Trump. How dare you?
What did he say about the minority? What did he say about the minorities that voted for Trump?
I don't think he said anything because he's a white man that would immediately get lynched if he did.
No. You can't say lynch because that's something they did to black people back then. You fucking asshole. I swear to God, you are an intolerable fucking shit. Anyway.
Speaking of which, we all gave our opinion, and you actually interrupted us in the middle of interesting ideas, but we can get back to it after you give your opinion, since yours does matter, since you were with us for quite a bit.
So, just like my opinion of what I think of the book overall, or what I think of...
How would you rate it? Would you rate it decent, as kind of trash, or just a complete dumpster fire where nothing is salvageable?
I The only thing I can say about Stigmata is I think it's clear from my standpoint that this was an agenda, basically. The whole book is nothing but an agenda to basically it's an agenda power fantasy where Chad wants to say fuck you politics, and he devised this whole rule. It's literally a child playing a game of I'm going to beat you up now because I have the superpowers. And Chad couldn't be damned to make the rules afterwards because that took too much work. So he either half-assed it or outsourced it to China.
How would you feel if I told you that the rule system of Sigmata was the beta test version of a rule set he gave out for free for bombs and balaclavas?
You know what? That's exactly what happened. That's the only thing that makes sense.
Sigmata literally uses the first draft version of the rules in bombs and balaclavas, and you have to pay for Sigmata.
Yes, we totally paid for Stigmata. We bought it legally. We gave Chad money. Totally, we did. So please buy it and do not use illegal memes to buy it.
But yeah, you actually walked in on us because I actually think personally that it is. I would almost put it in garbage fire, but there are the bare basics of two potentially good RPGs in there. There's the weird Cold War, the weird Cold War world where you just insert all of the crazy shit we threw down the hole in terms of money, like psychics, astral projections, mind laying, and psychic dolphins, all that sort of weird shit. You can even throw Posadism's weird socialist aliens into it, and I think it would work.
How do you appeal like the whole like revolutionary aspect?
Oh, well, you just
to
play
like a normal
spies.
person.
You play
Well,
CIA or KGB agents as you go through weird Cold War.
There was all this talk about like cults and stuff. Like, what if like you have like Yogo Chagas is actually the president, and now you got to rebel because holy shit, there's a fucking Eldritch guy in power.
That would be more interesting
Wouldn't that
than
been cool?
actually there, yeah.
Yeah, wouldn't that have been cool? Like, like the government's been taken over by cosmic horrors, and you got to rebel so we don't get eaten by narcotep, emotep.
Norlanthotep. Well, I mean, hell, make that like a campaign options thing in the book, like a who's really in charge, and give ideas and give like the GM ideas for revealing who's actually behind everything. Is it 100-year-old J. Edgar Hoover? Is it something that the Nazis contacted in the Himalayas? Is it aliens?
Yeah, and that could be cool, where you play as agents from the CIA or the KGB, either or. And you
Actually,
just...
no! Wait, fuck, that already exists! That's just Delta Green!
Yeah, but with the weird Cold War stuff, so it's like Deadlands. You know how Deadlands has the Weird West as a setting? Just imagine that but for like the Cold War period. So you have nuclear tanks, jetpacks, the weird flying jeeps, Soviet ape-men, and all that.
You know what I want to do now? I'm actually tempted. I don't know if I have the time of the day to do this, but do you want to make like a rulebook just to see how we can do? I mean, we can't do that bad of a job, can we?
And we could probably do better than this.
Yeah, when I have some time, I wouldn't mind giving it a shot. The other idea is to do the gritty revolution thing, but in a dark comedy sort of way, where you basically are trying to overthrow El Presidente from Tropico, but Tropico's name's filed off. Who's just this wacky, larger-than-life dictator that's puppy-kicking evil.
He enslaves people to make a giant statue of him that turns around to face the sun each day.
He literally destroyed the entire economy of his tiny banana republic to replace it all with making cheese. Like growing
cheese.
food? No, you're farming goats now, and you're going to make goat cheese.
That's not super cereal. So, should we cover some of the web presence of Sigmata? Because there's some interesting stuff in there, especially the stretch goals for the Kickstarter.
Which I'm now on the Kickstarter of Sigmata. This signal kills fascist. Wow, it made $40,000.
Yeah. Again, my theory is that this was a cash grab by Chad.
But who? Who took the money?
So there's a video there.
I mean, oh my
Are we just looking
god.
at the pledges, or are we looking at the information here?
I was gonna skip most of the information, but the stretch goals are good.
Okay, so
The artistic work is interesting just above the stretch goals. I'll read it. As an artistic,
let me see if I can find it. Is it just down in the basic? I'm sorry, it's been a
it's
while
about
since I've
midway
looked at it.
down.
Here we go, stretch goal. Sorry about that, viewers. I'm more used to Indiegogo than I am Kickstarter.
As an artistic work, Sigmata attempts the merger of the gritty cyberpunk styles of Akira with the vibrant colors and action figure motifs of 1980s Saturday morning cartoons, G.I. Joe, Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and achieves none of it.
Yeah, none of it.
All executed by the mighty Ario Murte. With Rio as this game's sole illustrator, expect maximum consistency and continuity of setting materials, quality, and mood.
I kind of feel
You-
bad for shitting on Aria Murty, given that it feels like he kind of did it with no real effort, especially the backdrops.
Your favorite cartoons and comic books and cartoons with no fun whatsoever.
And it was written in a long-winded style that could have cut 4 chapters of text to actually build up what was supposed to be there.
See, stretch goals. The first 6 stretch goals will fund alternate setting campaign modules for Sigmata, all based on or inspired by actual people movements throughout history and written by both up and coming and established game designers alike. Each PDF will feature cover illustrations by Ario. Adam, do you want to?
Okay,
Adam,
so
do you
the
want to read
Black
this?
Snake Rebellion by Ishki Ricard. Native country remains under siege. To bolster their war efforts, the regime has turned to uranium mining and pipeline. Okay. And pipeline
Okay.
construction on reservations. Indigenous lands and waters are being poisoned by the toxic ore and perpetual oil spills bled from infrastructure protected by Freedom Fries battalions occupying the land. I'm taking advantage of a real protest because I'm a piece of shit. I'm Chad Walker. The indigenous resistance is fighting back, employing guerrilla media tactics to expose the destruction and quietly building a global movement of indigenous fighters over. Oh, fuck off. But just fuck off. The Fries readies their riot shields and water cannons. I'm surprised they're not just gunning them down. While energy company propagandists prepare psychological operations. However, they have no idea what they are up against. The water is poisoned. Water is life. I love that weird, stroke he had at the end. So this is based on the whole North Dakota Alaskan pipeline protests. That last I checked, weren't most of the leakages caused by protesters chimping and damaging important equipment?
If I remember too, didn't a lot of the protesters just throw their fucking garbage all over the place too?
Probably.
Like,
Didn't.
Alabaster, you want to read Oswald Mosley, The Setting?
Oh Jesus!
Yes, the Oswald Mosley conspiracy. It's a real thing.
Oh, Christ.
Cable Street by Michael Trewin. 1936, the British Union of Fascists calls its way to power, stoking the fires of hate in the empire. Police watch in quiet, complicitly as uniformed soldiers march through the streets of London, terrorizing any who dare raise their voice in
Super
opposition.
soldiers, what?
It's only a matter before the black shirts stage a final demonstration on the doorsteps of resistance. Only a ragtag alliance of Jews, anarchists, socialists, Irish dock workers stand between them and the little ultimate victory. Can we all be Irish dock workers and we all fail because we were just too drunk to show up?
We take down Oswald Mosley by throwing empty bottles of Guinness at him.
Here's the thing about the Cable Street thing. The British Union of Fascists actually wasn't that popular because a lot of people thought they were tools of either Germans or Italy. So
Also,
that's one of the reasons it didn't do well. The other is that a lot of not just socialists, and by socialists I mean labor. Yeah, it's one of the biggest parties. So they were pretty heavily opposed.
Also, I'm just gonna say it right here, right now. I don't think anybody would let Jews, especially in 1936, be in their revolution.
Jews are always the way to undermine the revolution. Always remember that.
Also, the
Just
British Union of Fascists weren't sure what to do with Jews because Oswald Mosley was not a committed anti-Semite. Half of about a third of his party was, but he wasn't.
he was like, it was depending on the day of the week. Okay, should we kill them all or just send them off to some corner? I'll flip a coin.
Let's set them up in this territory called Israel. I'm sure that will work out fine for them.
Honestly, I think the black shirts would have been fine with that since they weren't as rabid as the Nazis were.
Also, what would that you play as Jews exiled to India, and now you have to be as Jews in India? That'd be actually somewhat. That would actually be somewhat interesting, especially with how the events of India at that period are planned.
Oh, by the
It
way,
kind
you do have the signal in the cable street, but my question is, how are you digitized that much?
It's old timey radio.
They're going to use the TARDIS. You know, like they're going to use phone books, which is an obvious parody of the TARDIS. Doctor Who.
I'm just wondering if I can just pudding Ray Oswald Mosley so he can not shoot John F. Kennedy on that grassy knoll.
funded. Biggie, you want to read the complex?
Yes, Dr. King and brother. Oh fuck!
It's so fitting.
You fucking white boy. You hold on. Let's see who Shara Roberts is. I'm looking this up. Maybe she
Shea
is
Roberts,
black.
named after Shea Butter.
Well, I'm seeing a couple of people, but I can't tell if he's a black guy or a white boy.
Always assume they're white because these types of people are scared of brown people.
Well, no. You can't, assume. It might be a black person, it might not. As a fellow darkie, you just. I mean, I'm getting this feeling. I don't think this. I got this feeling. Just nobody would just call him Dr. King and Brother Malcolm. That sounds like a white person thing. That's all I'm gonna say.
Wouldn't they call him Reverend King?
It would be Reverend King. That's what he's known as.
Yeah, he was a preacher. In fact, it was the preacher. What was it? It was the Christian. It was the Southern Christian. What was it again, Adam? That was the name of that, along with the NAACP, really helped for civil rights.
Wasn't it known as the Southern Christian Fellowship?
Yes, Southern Christian Fellowship was really very important to civil rights. Actually, something that Chad Walker fails to mention.
Well, they don't want to mention it because it's inconvenient. So anyway, Reverend King and Malcolm X are dead.
Do it. Okay, they're dead. But to the state's dismay, the resistance lives on to eradicate the criminals, thugs, and terrorists of the Black Panthers Party.
But they are terrorists. They're completely insane Maoists.
Propped up by Soviet infiltration. It's kind of real.
How the fuck do you pronounce that?
Just pronounce it in however you want.
Faggot has perfected the ultimate weapon.
Yes.
People of the black community, some returning from Viet fucking Nam, others pulled off the streets in warrantless arrests, have been mysteriously disappearing for months, only to return with little to no memory where they've been. These victims of MK Ultra experiments have been programmed to self-radicalize and join the Black Panthers. Once inside, Faggot Star will flip a merchant switch, causing the... Oh, fuck.
So in this one, the piece of shit that is Chad Walker is ripping off the Manchurian Candidate.
Causing these radicals to destroy the Black Panthers from within, using terrifying powers bestowed upon them through medical experimentation. There's just one problem. The switch doesn't work as intended.
And all the dads left their sons.
I'm just going to say right now, guys. What's the difference between the Black Panthers Party and the Daily Stormer?
jack shit.
They're both
No.
delusional.
It's just the inverse in color. That's all it is.
Question
Oh,
is could you play Forrest Gump in this setting? Like you got picked up at a
Wow.
Black Power.
Oh, that'd be great.
About running your Black Panther meeting and everything.
My mama always said life was like a box of chocolates. Now I'm gonna put in Ray, yeah.
The pudding. I was thinking, Gup, why'd you turn that guy into a pile of pudding? 'Cause you told me to, drill sergeant.
Oh, Jesus. Who wants to read the next one?
I'll do
Oh
it.
God.
Missing women of
No, you're-
India.
The missing women of India.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh. An alternate setting module about resistance and self-determination in the violent, male-dominated culture of the world's largest democracy. Uh-oh.
This is going to be bad.
As women from various age groups go missing, die without ceremony, or fade into the background of society, a new resistance has formed, demanding autonomy for women and threatening to topple a cultural regime of abuse and murder built on centuries of misogynistic programming.
Oh no, he spelled it wrong.
Uh-oh.
Misogynic.
So are they basically trying to say, go fuck yourself, India? That's what I'm getting here.
No, my question is why this women things isn't happening in countries like Pakistan.
No. Clearly, I think this is supposed to be like. I think this is supposed to be the actual India. Like the one where Britain went to get their tea. I think this is supposed to be that India.
Like India does have massive problems with misogyny, like actual legitimate misogyny.
Legitimately, women have faced acid attacks. Actually, it'll take cooking due to the way that looks and things are important. Some men will actually attack women with cooking grease. It's horrible.
And it's nice that he's pointing that out, but it's also weird that he actually has the guts to do that.
I thought that would be.
So, Chrome Wall by Kira Magrin. By 2056, the metropolis of Johannesburg, which is probably a dumpster fire by now, has become a critical hub of the world financial ecology. Corporations and investment firms around the globe will do anything to get in on the action. To be permitted in, they need only execute the regressive agenda of an ultra-conservative South African government. Oh boy. At the government's behest, corporate security firms and private military companies execute violent raids on gay bars and clubs.
Oh no!
Oh, I just realized the name of the fucking pun! I'm gonna use the Stonewall riots for this one. I'm a horrible fucking human being. I'm Chad Walker. I'm exploiting dead people. I'm Chad Walker.
He's exploiting dead faggots.
It takes
That's actually literal too.
Yes.
I'm just gonna say that this is cultural appropriation.
And clubs engaging gaslight campaigns to torment queer community leaders. Yeah, whenever I hear queer, you know what I hear that voice? I hear it in a old-timey Southerner accent whenever I hear queer, so you probably don't want to use them words.
They're harassing Brianna Wu.
Under the brutal conditions, a once vibrant community composed of vid artists, street performers, drag queens, actors, and fashionistas, and queer folk from Joburg and nearby Zulu territories at a tipping point, and they're not being executed by the Bantustans?
What?
They're not being murdered by Native Africans?
So this is a gay-ass rebellion. The gay-ass rebellion.
Starring Zulus.
I'm just now envisioning Shaka Zulu in a dress, and just his army is all wearing drag and doing street performances.
Does Chad know that that Africa as a whole really don't like the really big on the no homo thing?
God.
I think there's some areas of Africa where they believe if you're gay, you've been affected by witchcraft.
That's Uganda. So this is the timeline.
We need to take a moment to. We need to take a moment to honor one of the most revered Zulu gay members in Africa, and that's BillyWitchDoctor.com. He's a nudist. Adam, if you could do a favor and put up a picture of BillyWitchDoctor.com, for he's the most proud gay tribal member of the Zulus.
No, Vicky. But
Yes.
That takes effort, so no.
Oh.
I'm gonna
I'm
say
kidding.
that this
He's on right now as we're talking.
Yay!
I'm gonna say that this is the timeline where Uganda took over South Africa.
So they're just one security raid away from exploding into an all-out rebellion. So, a massive gay rebellion, even though it's native Africans that do most of the oppressing.
All right,
that hurt. So yes.
Can I read the next one?
Yeah, Battle for Wargrad.
Battle for Wargrad by Ben
God, you're gonna hate this.
The Great World War drags on between massive war machines of the Reich and the oh, fuck me. Adam, help me.
Beleaguered.
Well, I guess that's not that too much of a big word, but still, I'm fucked. But endless tides of the Confederation. Wait, what?
This is Chad Walker whitewashing the Soviet Union.
What? Of the Confederation during the early days of the war, the Ashkenazi, who called themselves the folk, rounded up at Reich and dumped.
I like the play on words. So the awkward.
Millions died of starvation and worse, but all hope was not lost. The feds have pushed within a few miles of the city, and now is the time to rise up and drive the Almec right and free your folk from bondage. Fight from the house to gutted house. Bring arms, food, medicine throughout the sewers. Let the feds know you're alive by painting the city red with blood of the Reich. Oh my God!
It's a Jew. A Jew wrote this.
Well,
but then
Vicky, this is the history of your people.
The Ashkenazi. Does this mean that the Jewsies really exist?
I'm not sure if he's trying to rip off the Warsaw Uprising or Stalingrad. I think Warsaw Uprising.
I thought the Warsaw Uprising was a bunch of Polacks that were just saying, Nazis, get the fuck out of our territory.
Also, I like how he just he does all of the Reich just in all caps. That's to really show how evil they are.
Obviously, it's an anagram for something.
It's an anagram for, can you please put me out of my fucking misery?
It's like the Grand Theft Auto approach to World War. It's the same thing, but with everything, with the names all changed.
So what's also funded is Sigmata FM. Oh, I almost vomited. Sigmata FM by Irving Force. A soundtrack. Oh, a soundtrack that'll help bring the setting, time period, and tone of Sigmata alive for players. The score will move seamlessly between ambient soundscapes, underground grooves, cinematic pieces, and into all-out warfare to reflect Sigmata's scenes of intrigue, which is social activity, stealth missions, which is running, and awesome firefights, which you can't do or else the death squads will pop in. This work will absolutely reek of 80s dystopia, merging the sounds of vintage synths with more modern production techniques to keep it interesting. Translations: I'm too retarded and don't know how to make actual 80s songs.
My question is, why doesn't he listen to some of the music from Blade Runner if you want to get great synth sounds with a I'd say as far as a prolific and iconic 80s cyberpunk, you're never going to get better than the Blade Runner soundtrack. Just try to emulate that.
So, aside from the motifs within the score, there will of course be a bombastic Sigmata theme to blast. I imagine it's just repeat the fucking signal over and over again, and Chad Walker saying it. Repeat the fucking signal! Repeat the fucking signal! And he just starts giggling near the end.
Chad, what are you doing up there?
No, nothing. I'm helping my friend make a CD.
Keep it down. I'm trying to watch the History Channel.
He's trying to watch 18 Aliens.
And then he just kind of starts quietly sobbing to himself while muttering, "Fuck you, Dad."
Fuck you, Dad. Wait, are the chicken tendies still there? They're in the fridge. They're in the fridge, son. Now let me watch some Ancient Aliens.
You'll also be able to follow along the writing of the score on Irving Force's live stream. Oh, there's a companion piece apparently.
Oh,
Wait, does
Sigmata.
anyone? Can we get some of that live stream? I now want to know what kind of trash fire it was.
Well, if they didn't save it, it's been gone for years probably.
No, I can pull it up on. Oh,
Just to let you guys know, we've been going, I think, for almost 2 hours, by the way.
Does it
all
ever
right.
end?
Let's quickly go through the interview because it's funny, and then the beginning of the Fatal and Friends review because I just think we should use that as the ending point. There's the album, there's the Bandcamp album for this.
I'll make sure to link it into YouTube just so that you, the viewers, can also listen to that trash fire.
I will say the Parades for the Tyrant track is actually decent.
So let's go to Antidotazine. I think that's the one, right?
Yep,
Is Popular Front Anti-Fascism a fantasy? Oh.
probably.
It's published by
Oh.
Ed Sutton in Conversations, Culture of Resistance, Hearts and Mind, and Tag, Chad Walker, Empathy. No, pass out. Oh, wow. Using an old French term for like World War I or something.
Down to the
Anti-note. Oh, sorry.
yep.
If the
The
following is
actual
a conversation Antidote editor Ed Sutton had with security professional and independent game designer Chad Walker, author of the 2016 tabletop game, Cryptomancer, which was probably on the chopping block eventually. His new game, Sigmata, is due out in July of 2018 and is about ethical insurgency against the fascist regime, taking place in a dystopian version of 1980s America. If you've seen our entire series, you'll know that this is a big, what we call in the professional business, a big goddamn lie.
Allegory is fairly upfront. Minus the cyborgs and temporal displacement, the setting of the game seems ever so slightly reminiscent of socio-political circumstances we find ourselves today on Turtle Island. Such as it
Using
has
an Iroquois setting. Wait, are they actually using the Iroquois thing for like the name of the world? Wow.
such as it has the potential to be more than a game. It could be also an organizing tool to help players think strategically and creatively, not only how to fight Nazis, but how to navigate uneasy political alliances that a true popular front would require.
So this is the
But it
magazine
is a tool.
admitting that it's a terrorist manual.
Oh my god.
And
Even there.
let's skip to the interview. I'll voice Chad Walker. Ask the first question.
So Chad Walker, thanks for joining us. You made a humble observation just now that you don't quite know what you're trying to do in making this game. So you don't have the solution, but what is the problem? What is the problem that you feel no better equipped than anyone else to solve? What made you want to write Sigmata? By the way, that is the... I think the person who asked this, Ed, may have brain damage, given that it felt like he just suffered a macro stroke.
or he could be, or this could be like this English is not his first, so this is a very broken. This we're dealing with some Brazilian man or something like that.
Eastern Europe. So you don't have solution, but what is problem? What is problem that make you no feel better?
That was where he had the stroke. I'm surprised his last words weren't gargling before saying, "I'm a die," and fall over.
As a classic insufferable liberal, I feel really gross about the public discourse becoming so vile and grotesque and inhuman when it comes to people's struggles. Whether it's immigrants or people of color getting killed by police all the time, or transgender people being denied their very existence, the rhetoric from their opposition is so vile, and it's no longer on the fringes. The vileness is front page.
Chad Walker, you're not a liberal. If you were, you wouldn't be repeating the same talking points that everyone else is.
I mean, I'll give him that he is insufferable.
He is
That
insufferable.
really concerns me. But it's more than all that awfulness. I also think about liberalism's failure to solve or counter it.
How
Hmm.
dare we expected to leave people alone? You do know that the term liberal means hands off, right?
Think back to the 2016 elections. I forget which of the debates it was, but in one, Hillary Clinton showed up wearing all white, like Gandalf the White.
Read another book. Read another book.
Uh,
Also, nice. You know what? It also reminds me of the KKK.
so what?
She-
So what? So I guess that gives me meaning to Grand Wizard, eh?
She had come as this avatar, this holy agent of liberalism.
Well, no,
Super
Stop.
articulate,
No.
super smart,
No.
super polite,
no,
and in a lot of ways humanitarian,
no.
concerned about people,
Fuck no.
nuanced. She had all these things. This guy has a porn stash of Hillary Clinton. I fucking guarantee it.
The fact that he's like
This-
completely masturbating over a hideous cunt who, by the way, for those of you who are watching, fun fact, remember, Hillary actually opposed gay rights until she realized it was more politically expedient to support it, even if it's by not supporting it at all or going against it, than it was to be against it.
Also,
I
wasn't
could
it
be wrong, but
wasn't
what's-
during Clinton years that stop and frisk became really popular, became very
Oh, yeah.
Also, there's been a long-running rumor that she's so concerned about people that she let victims of sexual abuse by her hubby basically fall out of the wayside so that he could save his political career and hers by extension.
I'm also a retard here, but I could be wrong. But wasn't she also a big proponent for Guantanamo Bay back in the day? And also
Not
one of the
only
brown
that,
bomb.
but calling her an angel of liberalism's a fucking joke.
Did she also want to kill brown people too, if I remember correctly?
She's a complete and utter centrist who tried to advocate that it's a third position. Which, by the way, fun fact: when you hear the terms third position, you know what that means?
Fascism.
I'm
Oh yeah,
better than all of
fascism
you.
actually did use that term.
On the other side, of course, was the grotesque, the wall of traditional liberalism, with all its nice manners, its Victorian haughtiness, its pearl clutching. All it does is amplify the grotesque. Suddenly, all we can see is the grotesque. Suddenly, all we're talking about is the grotesque, and it's all we've been talking about since November of 2016. I like how we can't even say Trump. It's just the grotesque.
he who shall not be named. Read another book, Chad. Read
Or
another book.
Voldemort.
Also, traditional liberalism. Chad, if you believed in traditional liberalism, you would not be taking any leftist points of view. Because traditional liberalism is leaving people basically libertarian as it stands.
Pretty much. You can't counter the grotesque with good manners. That's when I started thinking about the radical. Can the radical be a counter to the grotesque that traditional liberalism cannot?
No.
Again, I identify as the type of liberal who most people hate, but I acknowledge that liberalism is an incomplete counter to what we're dealing with today. So I wanted to explore the radical as an answer.
Translation: my mask came off and I've realized that I'm actually a terrorist apologist who would be happy if Donald Blump got exploded in a fucking accident.
To do that, I started with what I know as a technologist, but also as a foreign policy thinker by my virtue of my security career and academic discipline.
Yeah, your 2-year degree. I could tell that your understanding of the foreign affairs is about as solid as my understanding of differential mathematic equations and calculus. I.e., I'm garbage at them, and so are you at foreign policy.
I know technically we can all be foreign policy thing. We're all technically foreign policy thinkers.
Doesn't Well, doesn't just a degree in security basically mean whenever you see a black person, you just bash their head in? Isn't that
Well,
what
no,
security
it's
teaches you?
cybersecurity. So whenever he sees, so he actually believes that things you see on TV are real. So there's an elite cabal of hackers from 4chan committing great
That play
atrocities.
video games on the side.
One of these days he's gonna take down Anonymous.
What are some
Oh.
useful frameworks to think about what's happening in America and abroad? And any of these frameworks, even though they might have been used for imperialist enterprises throughout history, be subverted in any way to teach us how we can put humans first in some of these struggles.
Bull fucking shit. That's something I wanted to. That's something I wanted to ask you about. You mentioned investigating other ideologies or structures of thought and mining them for information approach, for some insight on how they work and what their goals are. What kinds of principles underpin their practices?
That
Where are you
was a word salad.
basically, what the hell are you talking about? Could you give examples of what you've learned from a specific context or particular way of looking things that you perhaps haven't investigated before?
The exploring I've done of political ideologies and groups has been to mine them for ways to either subvert them, recruit them, or counter recruit them within the context of the game, where the resistance consists of disparate factions. I can give some examples of people who I basically hate, probably a lot of examples, starting with his dad.
Starting with the makers.
Ideologically, or who do far more harm than good, but whose interests and motives periodically overlap with that which I love and wish there were more of. There are religious groups in the U.S. engaged in underground railroad-style efforts, harboring and hiding immigrant families so they don't get split up.
That's not
In a
underground.
late
So what you're saying is they're committing a crime by letting people whose first act in getting into the country is to commit a crime. Also, you're accidentally revealing that you approve of the high levels of rape in those poor people's lives.
Also, so that these so I guess these churches are coyote stash hideaway houses. Good job, Chad.
In a lazy way, I usually associate religious folk with evangelical, manifestly political pop religion. I'm getting the feeling that Chad has a Darwin sticker on his bumper.
I get the feeling Chad thinks that modern Christians are still like the 80s with the moral outrage panic.
There are Christians in America doing radical and definitely illegal work, and I think it's awesome. If that type of thing can happen, then let's explore it and amplify it, even just praise it. I understand
So he just kind of revealed he praises all the rape.
that.
As long as it lets in more voters for our district, or I mean, help immigrant families.
But keep them away from me, because the moment they move right next to me, I begin sweating profusely.
It drops my property. It drops my dad's property values. So don't let those poor people in my neighborhood. In fact, let me come into their neighborhood and price them out.
I understand that we probably don't agree on a lot of stuff, but if the principle is that all humans are your flock is what drives you, count me in. Keep doing it.
I support human trafficking. That's what he's accidentally revealing.
Do you think Chad Walker also likes it when people do illegal things because it undermines the Trump presidency?
Yeah, well, he does. Remember, he said there are Christians in America doing radical and definitely illegal work, and I think it's awesome.
Who are these? Who are these? Could you tell us who are doing these illegal works? That
Are you sure you want to do all of Chad's stuff, dude? Because this is Chad revealing he loves to talk about himself. Look at how long this is.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Can we actually? I'm just gonna say, can we fucking stop? This is fucking torture. I don't mean it in joking. This is literally a fucking madman we're listening to.
Okay.
I don't want to listen to
I want to finish this part of Chad's. Congratulate me. I'm so fucking smart. I'm big brained because I use Google to know where all these things are. And I listen to the news that feeds me false info.
Okay, where is that? That's
another example. Another example it's not as dramatic as it challenged me. Was when Trump's business council disintegrated after they said there were very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville. He was elevating Nazis and bringing down the resistance to Nazi, and that sucks.
But you forgot the both sides. What about the other? What about he highlighted Antifa also being good there, you dumbass.
So good for the business council. Yes, they're billionaires and vampires. And so
Ignore how Chad Walker makes 100K.
I'm going to let's replace vampires with Jews, and we'll have the same thing. So yes, they're billionaires and Jews, and they thrive on oppressive systems. It's really easy to say what they did was entirely market and religious driven. Their calculation was to ensure that most white people suffer under their political gesture. I get that. I don't take away the fact that they humiliated a president who said a fascist thing, but distanced themselves from them so that Goyim would figure out.
They're very fine people on both sides. Says it relating to the Proud Boys as well as Antifa. Clearly a fascist, even though he also praised the anti-fascist crazy left-wing organization.
He said there were bad actors on. He also said there were bad actors on both sides.
That's a non-partisan statement. That's not fascist.
Yeah, a lot of it. There were. Yeah, you had Nazi gays. Yeah, Nazi.
If he called Antifa as a hate-filled, crazed mob that deserves only to be gunned down like the dogs they were, that's far more fascist.
No, what they don't deserve to be gunned down, but they do deserve bricks thrown at them or something like that. Maybe if
deserve to be laughed at.
They just deserve to be laughed at, and then when they punch
you get counter larpers, so we can get another Battle of Berkeley. Damn it! I want to watch another one of them.
Just mock them, and then when they gang up because they're so weak and pathetic, just get your own posse and just start laughing at them in group, and they'll run away sobbing because they're so weak. And then if they pull out guns, then you have castle law and self-defense.
Like I said, I don't want to see anyone dead. I just want to see another. I just want to see another Battle of Berkeley because that was entertaining to watch.
It was entertaining to watch these puffed up Billy badasses get their shit wrecked by.
The best one was somebody took the footage of that, and then they placed the Rome Total War music over it.
There's an opportunity. Okay, they're bastards, but for at least a tiny moment in time, because they disagreed with Orange Man, you hyper partisan hack. Their interest in the interest of the many people aligned. Can we at least acknowledge that could happen sometimes? Yes, it's temporary. Yes, it's ephemeral. Yes, I'm using a big boy dictionary as I'm talking to you, interview man. But let's at least call it when we see it. So those are a couple of examples of evaluating groups in a different light. One last thing I would add, and I noticed that he's using only references to the evil Orange Man. Nothing from history or anything interesting like that. One last thing I would add is that we should actually listen to the rivals' rhetoric. It's not that their rhetoric is right. You're always wrong. But there's insights in their rhetoric. If you talk to any evangelical, any of them, which Chad's never done, and ask if they think Christians are persecuted, they would say, yes, absolutely. Not necessarily.
It depends on what they said. It depends
on the person and what group you're talking to. If you talk to anyone who's not an evangelical and if they think Christians are persecuted, they'll say, what are you talking about? They're the persecutors. Again, it depends on the person.
Like, for example, like, what if you felt like that sometimes you could feel like that. What if you have one of those religious bookstores being bullied by some of these assholes because they said they don't believe in gay marriage? And they said they'll finally serve gay people, but they just don't believe in gay marriage.
Oh, yeah. And also, notice that this is something Chad would say, since this is a lot more defined than the previous thing. Just going and pretending you actually listen, Chad. They're a cult of wealth. They're a cult of statism. I could go on. But let's look at the important part here. When Orange Man was running his campaign, he said Christians are persecuted. I'm going to let that slide. He probably said it at one point or another. He might have not said that explicitly, but he indicated... Oh, he didn't say it then. So you're lying. You're committing perjury here, Chad. Okay. So you
No,
might
you
not
don't
have said that
understand.
explicitly, but he indicated that he would be supportive of laws that protect Christianity, among other things. And all the Christians were like, yeah. You mean the majority of the fucking country, including all those wonderful people of color that you fondle over because demographics shift?
Also, no, he just wants. No, you got to believe that they eventually, once you make it into a brown multicultural society, then you get rid of the religion because
Religion just
that's how you
instantly
form.
fucking dies, even though brown people are more religious than white people.
But they vote for the things I like. That's why we need to bring them in.
And they
We
only
need to
vote
create.
for it because of the gimmidats that the economical group that the economic party plank has. If they got rid of even some of that shit, they'd be voting Republican, and you'd know it.
Also, no. Well, all this is in service of Chad's creating the ultimate monster of creating the two-tier society where you have a large swaths of poor people utterly dependent on the state. Otherwise, they will have no rights, no way to survive, or anything like that. And a small upper aristocrats like assholes like Chad that believe that they're doing this out of the goodness of their hearts. I
And
fucking
don't
hate
forget that
socialists.
he needs poor people to manage his server farms and his ham radio stations.
I ever told you guys how much I hate armchair socialist and these champagne socialist? Probably the one group I feel like that needs to be taken to communist countries so that they can and see the
No,
fruits of it.
here's the thing, though. Those disgusting piles of trash always go to the 5-star areas that the communist governments always keep for dumb foreigners like them.
Now, the question I have to ask you is, Randall, what makes a champagne socialist a champagne socialist?
Basically, have they worked at? Have they
Oh, I meant to say
actually?
Alablaster, but you can work too. You can work too. Sorry, I slurred my words.
Basically, have they actually worked a hard day of labor in their lives, or was that all of Daddy's servants?
That's
Oh,
part
you mean
of it.
like Twitter? Oh, you mean like the people on Twitter?
There's other
Yeah.
parts. Are they a type of person that advocates for the working person and yet refuses to even interact with them, are terrified by their existence, advocates for equality, runs away from black people into their gated communities, pretend that they give a shit for the poor when in reality they live in a gated community and want to avoid poor people whenever possible, talk
It's
about
open
all
door.
this retarded bullshit that they've never read, and then not do any of it.
Just remember, it's open borders for everyone. Except me. You assholes don't go into my neighborhoods. You'll bring the property values.
There's a reason why I approved of Trump saying, "Oh, if you want to have the legal immigration, I'm just going to have them all go to the sanctuary cities." They begin panicking and saying they don't want it. Oh, but I thought you
Oh, that was
wanted it.
hilarious.
Oh, it was cruel. This was a cruel, politically calculated move.
No one
As
fucking
if
wants
trying to
it.
encourage mass. Yeah. No, we don't want them here because we are already very blue. We need them to go to other red states so we can flip them blue by virtue of.
Also, I don't want them near me. They scare me because they don't speak English and might mug me.
So what you're saying is we got to pump them full of as many homeless people and immigrants as we can until they die.
If I remember right, George Orwell has one of the best descriptions on these types of douchebags ever, where they brag about all of their appreciation and understanding of Marxist thought, and yet are more disgustingly and yet are more classist than any bourgeois fuck that ever existed.
And like Orwell was a goddamn Trotskyist, but he actually fought in the Spanish Civil War.
In fact, a lot of some of the ideas of Animal Farm were actually formed while he was fighting in the Spanish-American War.
No shit, he was.
In the Spanish Civil.
He was part of.
Sorry,
part of
it's
the International
very
Brigades.
late.
He
Well,
wrote
shit,
Animal
that's-
Farm because he was inspired by the Great Purge.
That's actually pretty cool. I didn't ever knew that.
And I think we'll leave it off here. Sorry guys, there was more insanity, but Chad loves to talk to himself, and there's only so much, and it's been so long. To give you an idea, it's 11:30.
Yeah.
And I gotta edit quite a bit of fucking crap.
Well, Adam, we love you.
Yep.
You
So
too.
next week or the week after, we don't know yet. We're gonna try to run Sigmata, and you know what I think I'm gonna try? I think I'm gonna try to use live streaming from YouTube.
Oh boy.
I would try Streamy, but they went out of business.
I can't believe they died.
So, yeah, look forward to that. Worst comes to worst, I'll just record it using OBS like I always do. So, have a good night, everyone.
Not everybody.
Goodbye.
And we don't have to repeat the signal anymore. It's so fucking great.
Yay!